All right, hi guys, welcome. I'm Kim Howerton, and I have to remember to use my slides. There we go. I'm a keto lifestyle coach, and I've actually been a coach of some kind for the last decade. So I've coached body image, I've coached sexuality, I've coached relationships, I've coached executive and business, and organizational coaching as well. The only type of coaching I have not done is sports coaching because I don't know anything about sports. But the reality is when you're a coach, it's not as much about the content as it is about the skills, the change skills. Now, it is important that you care about what you're coaching about. And for me, I have my own keto journey. I started keto 3 years ago. After a lifetime of disordered eating, weight gain, out of control, I tried OA, I did a lot of 12-step, and treating things. The reality was I was metabolically broken, and I had been overweight since I was about 9 years old. And all my family was overweight when they were like teenagers, right? And then they all got thin when they were adults. And so I was like, all right, I'll just wait. And it just kept waiting. And then I was like, oh, okay, crap, I have to do something about it. Okay, but along the way I thought, well, if I'm just gonna be a big person, I'm gonna learn how to be a happy big person. And one of the things that you might learn in relationship is if you love your partner in spite of some of their worst qualities, that is not a winning strategy, right? We have to learn to love the people around us for who they are, right? Not just like, I'm just going to ignore that thing that really bothers me. And for me, I got to a point where I said, okay, but the snoring, I understand, we can't do anything about that, but you get what I mean. I got to a point where I said, no, like, I can live with living the rest of my life not loving the way I look in a bikini, right? Just to be honest. But I hit 40, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna die. Did anyone get to that place where you were like, maybe not tomorrow, but sooner than I want to, and in a fashion that will be much more painful than I hope to see, right? And because there was seemingly, to Amy's point, my personal fat threshold seemed to be high, right? I kept getting bigger and I kept getting sicker. So what I want to talk to you guys about, because we've had some awesome people talking about a lot of details about keto specifically, I want to talk to you about change. So here's a parable. Some people wonder, like, why would I want to coach versus seeing a doctor versus a therapist? And we all have our places, but this story kind of illustrates it to me. So let's say you fall into a deep, dark well, right? And you're down there and you're like, help, help. And a doctor comes by, a traditional doctor, not the doctors in this room, right? Comes by and says, looks like that hole's giving you a rash. Here's some cream. You're like, thanks, I'm in this hole, right? And a therapist comes by. By the way, I'm not knocking any of these professions, they're very helpful and useful, but a therapist comes by and says, well, let's talk about your relationship with the well. Right, and you're like, maybe later, but right now I need to get out of the hole. And then a coach walks by. And the coach says, oh, hello, and jumps into the hole. And you're like, are you a moron? Why? I need to get out of the hole, and now we're in the hole, and the coach says, it's okay, I've been in this hole. I know how to get out. And so for me, I've been all these different coaches, but then I went keto, and I said, you know what? I can save a marriage, or I can save a life. And to me, when that happened, I was like, well, there's nothing else I can do. Like, once you see the problem, you have to fix the problem. I'm a fixer. Gotta fix it. So coaches are a little goal-oriented. This is as far as I go with sports. I don't even know what happened there. But. So I believe that means in this instance there was a ball involved. We are goal-oriented. And speaking of goals, like in the world, when we aren't educated about how to make change, or we've never done any personal work, maybe we think goal. Okay, I have a goal, like I want to lose weight. What am I going to do? Willpower. I'm going to just do it. You're like, oh, you want to lose 20 pounds? How are you going to do it? I'm just going to do it. You know, I'm just going to gut it out, right? But there is a central problem. Willpower is not a strategy. It's maybe a tactic, but it's a weak one at that. Because the reality is willpower is finite, right? It is a resource. Finite, it will run out. If you are tired, angry, hungry, right? You only have so much willpower, and it's not like you leave the willpower in the fridge with like a label willpower and like nobody will eat it, right? Your whole life will eat away at that willpower, and if you don't have any extra, you don't have any. And so willpower is not a strategy. So this is one of my boring slides. So I'm a little bit of a word nerd, so I like to go into some of this, but so when we have a goal, we develop a strategy. That strategy has objectives, and then we have tactics. So like your desired outcome. And you can have multiple goals, right? But they kind of follow a path. Like you might have a goal to be able to pick up your grandkids, right? Like physically, right? So your strategy might be to work out and eat ketogenically. Right? And your objectives are like things along the way that you're going to see, like, oh, now I can lift a sack of flour. You know, so right, you're going to have these markers. You know, some people will use weight loss. I lost 10 pounds, I lost 20 pounds. If your ultimate goal is like to lose 100 pounds, I will say that number goals are poor goals. Yes. We don't have time to go into that today, but that's part of what I thought. So, and then tactics. Now, I know they're not actually the same root word, but they sound like the same root word. One's Greek, one's Latin, but tactics, I always think tactile, right? Like touch, what can I touch? It's a tool. There's a lot of T's. That was really bad on the recording. So you have a tool that you use to meet an objective that fits your strategy, and then you reach your goal, right? So we're going to talk about a tactic. So as I said earlier, willpower is a bad tactic, but it is a tactic. A little Sun Tzu here. Where's Dana Vega? This is for Dana Vega. But strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory, and tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. So here's the reality, right? If you don't know what your plan is and how you're going to get there, it's like you're driving down the road and you know your destination, but you don't have a map. That's not going to work. But if you have a map, but you don't know where you're going, well, that's not going to work either, right? One without the other is useless. So counting calories is not a strategy. Tracking macros is actually not a strategy. They're both tactics. So you have to know how they relate to your larger goal and your strategy. So why is this called chips other than to make people hungry? Well, so the chemical symbol for change is delta, which is a triangle. Hey! Geeky moment number one. All right, or 3 maybe, I don't know. But so one of the things we talk about a lot in coaching is behavior change, right? Now, there is a lot of deep work to be done when you have any kind of struggle, and many people have touched on it. You know, therapy is super important. Going deep into your emotions is super important. But there's also just the reality that if you're a crack addict, the deep emotional work is not going to start to have some effect until you stop taking the crack, right? You've got to make some behavioral change. So when you need to change, you can rely on chips. No, not those kind. No, not these kind either. But they are yummy. Chips. Choices, habitat, identity, progress, and self-awareness. So this is an acronym that stands for some of the things that you need to go through to make a change stick. So I'm going to just give definitions.
Go back, I just want to go out.
I have it listed a couple times. And if you miss a slide, I'll give it to you.
Okay, thank you.
So choices. These are definitions, by the way. You can find them in the dictionary. Choices are the act of selecting an option when more than one exists, right? Then habitat, a person's preferred surroundings. Identity, the act of being who or what a person is. Progress, not perfection. Forward or onward movement towards a destination. And self-awareness, conscious awareness of one's own feelings, desires, patterns, and motives. So let's talk about choices. The act of selecting an option when more than one exists. And the reality is one always exists. The reality is, though, you may have passed it a little ways back there, right? Like there's a fork in the road and you're like, I should have gone left, right? Because you've gotten to a place where you have to get out of. One thing that is super important is that whenever you find yourself without a choice and you're presented with a bad outcome, an outcome you do not desire, you need to find the choice point. Look at what happened. Go back in your mind. Where did I make the wrong choice here? And then next time when presented with that scenario, you know not to go left, right? So one of the things that is super hard, and I'll even do it, I've done it like 4 times, good, bad, good, bad. When you use good and bad in terms of choices, it triggers our inner judge, right? That was a bad choice. The immediate, what is it? I'm a bad person and made a bad choice. But no, you made a choice that didn't support your goal. Okay, that is much less about taking something on that you shouldn't carry. Like, food is not good or bad, right? Like, there's not evil, there's not sin in the sinless chocolate, right? There's supporting or not supporting. Take away the judgment, because shame triggers a lot of us to make the bad decision. It's like it's a feedback loop, right? So one thing I would like to mention here is that I get a lot of criticism for saying that we all always have a choice, right?
Amen.
Because I get people on my lives and things being like, I don't know if you know what it's like to be an addict. And I'm like, you don't think I know what it's like? Hello! Like, I am, like, look up addict in the dictionary. Oh, it's Kim. I hope they take the nice picture, you know. But the reality is, I mean, think about 12-step, right? I don't know if any of you have done it, but, you know, in AA and 12-step, what did they have you do if you feel like you're going to make a bad decision? Call your sponsor. Go somewhere else. Do something different, right? Addicts have choices. If they aren't in a place they can make that choice, they didn't make the choice soon enough. So we get to a lot of places where we like to say, oh, I didn't have any choice. There was only macaroni and cheese. What was I to do? Right? There are several choices in that moment, but there was also probably a much easier choice a little while ago. Maybe that choice was bringing something of your own. Maybe that choice was not going. Maybe that choice is eating before you go. Right? There are always choices. Habitat. A person's preferred surroundings. When I was deep in my food addiction, my preferred surroundings was within walking distance of food, right? Or actually reaching. Yeah. Maybe just like licking, right? Like it was right there, right? But habitat is actually everything you surround yourself with. It's not just about where the food is. It's about people, the job, the home. What are you building, right? We're building a habitat. We're a beaver, we'd be getting sticks. But as us, we're like getting like which Instagrams we follow, right? Every choice we make about what do we surround ourselves with is our habitat. And so is your habitat supporting your change? And what can we do to shore that up? Okay, one thing that people often say is like, I don't have control over my habitat, right? Like I work in a bakery, right? Okay, there are two things to look at. Short term versus long term. Short term, I think I like a lot of cues because my memory, not so good. Short term, the turtle carries his habitat with it, right? So if you're in a short term bad habitat, do what you need to guard yourself. Create that shell for yourself. But that shell is heavy and no one in this room is actually a turtle, as far as I can see. So long term, you have to shed your skin. You have to get rid of whatever it is, and that is terrifying, right? That means you have to find a new job, maybe. You work in a bakery and you're like, I just can't stop. Give you some tactics, maybe you can do this, can you do that, can you do this? It just doesn't working. And I'm stressed out all the time, right? Okay, that's not a good strategy. So you're gonna need to make some changes. So short term, turtle. Long term, shed your skin. You're gonna have to make some changes. The next piece is identity. So a lot of identity comes down to self-talk. So let's talk about smoking, right? How many of you like smoked at some point in the past? Maybe some of you aren't.
She's still smoking.
She's smoking hot. That's true. Oh, I gotta hurry up. Okay, so when we say, I'm trying to quit, what is that conveying? I'm trying to quit. Conveying, I'm still a smoker, right? I'm trying. That's the language of struggle, right? What do we say? I'm having a trying time, right? Trying is a word that is not helpful in a lot of ways, right? It's also an excuse word. Do this. I'm trying. So both trying and quit are triggers, right? You know something's going on there. I don't smoke. Right? So watch the language you use. I actually realized this the other day. People will like, do you want to drink? I'll be like, I don't drink. I do occasionally drink, but my identity is not someone who drinks, right? So what's your identity piece? Oh, that got cut off. It says, I'm trying to avoid carbs. Right? I'm trying to avoid carbs. That is an identity of struggle. I live a keto lifestyle. These people are never so happy to barbecue in their life, right? I live a keto lifestyle.
Really funny part.
Beware the dark side. Sometimes when we're like, I'm keto, like there's a useful part of that. Your identity is keto. If your identity is keto, it's a lot easier to make keto choices. However, it is also easier to be a jerk. Right? So beware the dark side where you get dogmatic, religious, inflexible, elitist, and closed off. Right? Remember I said keto is a strategy? Strategy have tactics. It can have many tactics. So your keto might not look like somebody else's keto, and nobody in here is the keto police. But you can be your own keto monitor. Progress, not perfection. So as I said, I've spent some time in 12-step I went to OA for a long time without success, but I went there. And so this concept of progress, not perfection. So progress, you're always making headway towards your goal. It can be at the speed that works for you. But don't hold yourself up that it has to look perfect. I do want to clarify a point that some people misunderstand in progress, not perfection. Progress, not perfection means binge all the time, okay, on whatever behavior you don't want to do because I'm not supposed to be perfect. No. So in 12-step, they actually is a clarification. Not perfection doesn't mean relapse. It means not holding yourself to an impossible standard. So one of the things that I like to say is perfection is a concept. It's not a reality. It doesn't exist. And we are all durings, unless we're dead. I would rather be a during. Right? There's no such thing as an after. We reach one goal, we have a new goal. It doesn't matter. It's life. It's progress. We're better than we were the day before. And self-awareness. Conscious patterns of one's own feelings. So, are you an abstainer or are you a moderator? Do you like to jump in the deep end? Or are you more of a inching the toes in the water, right? How do you want to make these changes is up to you. Nobody gets to decide for you. You also want to know what you love and what are your aversions, what are your unique triggers, and, oh, I don't know what I'm not building of someone else's anymore, but okay. Oh, yeah, you're not building someone else's, goals or things. It's your own life. So when the chips are down, call upon your chips, right? When you're in a tough spot. This is why coaching, what I just explained to you is what we do as coaches, but you can go through these steps yourself. Every time you need to make a change, you need to look at, you can go through these steps and say, where am I with this? Go through it again, where am I with this? It can be a daily check-in even. So you can do this on your own, you don't need a coach, but if you need somebody to point out when maybe you are not as self-aware as you need to be, you can always find one. Because sometimes it's really hard to see yourself, and it's really much better to have somebody who's a mirror. And just like I said, the people that are doing coaching that you're like, right on. I mean, there are people that say they're coaches, but the people that you resonate with, they've been in that hole before.